Video people. How are you?
Hello, friends.
We see you. Again. So Apple's not going to buy Tidal. What's a Jay-Z to do?
Is that official?
Jimmy Iovine says, nah, we're not interested.
Maybe he'll get on Twitter and tell them that Apple is missing the boat.
Do you want to know what I think that is? I got a theory on that.
What's your theory? Here's the quote. Jimmy Iovine told BuzzFeed News, "We're not looking to acquire any streaming services."
I think Apple went to Tidal and they said, here's a number we'd like to buy you for.
Yeah.
And literally this is just a goodwill gesture so we can have a better relationship with Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye West, Rihanna, and all the people who have actually given a rat's ass about trying to keep Tidal afloat by, leveraging their power with their labels to give them those exclusive windows, right? And Tidal said no. And so they're like, well, okay, plan B is waiting until you go out of business and all of you each individual deals, rich, gigantic deals to give us your exclusives on new albums.
And Jay-Z said, that's what I want. That's
like effectively, I think that's Apple saying we think Tidal will go out of business before Beyonce puts out a new record.
Well, Apple would love to have made, I would assume, would love to have made that announcement of Jay-Z now joining Dre on our executive ranks.
I was thinking about this. Do you think it's possible that we will see in the next little bit a music-only keynote, not focusing on tech, but rather like these are the albums that will be coming out exclusive to Apple Music?
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I don't think they'll do that, but I kind of think they should. And they just have like Dre and Iovine keynote host it.
I mean, you have Iovine come out, and he basically does a showcase, what used to be a record showcase, except it's about Apple Music and all the singles. You have multiple.
And Dre is the Craig Federighi who comes out and does a section of it.
But that's the thing is like, record showcases have happened forever, but an Apple keynote is something that always gets attention.
Yeah.
And if it was about music and you had that celebrity, I think it would too.
All right. We ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this then. Here we go.
Quality content thrives through the support of those who benefit from its creation. If you gain value from the Daily Tech News Show, consider joining others like me who provide support. Learn how to help at dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, September 15th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Justin Robert Young. I've been thanking people all week, Justin, and I'm not going to stop now. Thank you for filling in while I was gone the last 2 weeks. Awesome shows.
Oh, Tom, we were doing pale imitations of you while you were off.
Is that a crack at how white I am?
Indeed it is. And furthermore, I would like to talk about how the differences between me and you and our driving techniques.
No, you guys did a great job. Are you kidding me? It's good to be back. It's good to be talking to you today. We were talking pre-show about the fact that Jimmy Iovine felt it necessary to tell BuzzFeed News that Apple's not interested in buying any streaming services. Tidal.
Yeah.
So,
which means, as we pointed out, that he thinks that Tidal will be out of business by the time Beyonce releases the new album.
Right. We also are going to talk today a little bit based on a CNET report about the future of smartwatches. People have been a little shifty or even Schwifty about smartwatches for a while. And there's some news that the release schedule of smartwatches is slowing down. So is that bad news for smartwatches? Is it just the way that industry is going to go? We're going to talk about that. T-Mobile USA says iPhone 5 SE, 6, and 6 Plus users may lose connection if they update to iOS 10. The fix, if it happens, is to reboot the phone. So they're telling people to hold off on iOS 10 if they haven't already. And Twitter streams its first NFL game Thursday night. Justin, are you ready for some football on Twitter?
I don't know. RT, if you agree.
And now here are some more top stories. Apple will not release its first week sales numbers of iPhone 7s. They said that, but they will tell you on Wednesday night that all iPhone 7 Plus models are sold out. All colors. You won't even be able to get them if you go to a store on Friday. And in fact, the smaller iPhone 7 in jet black is also sold out, and the other colors are going to only be available in limited numbers. So here's my Insta conspiracy theory, Justin. They knew their supply chain was going to have a problem, so they get ahead of it and say, we're not going to issue numbers because those numbers are going to look small because their supply is constrained, but it's a way better press release to talk about selling out when we're not going to tell you any hard numbers.
Now, this used to be, we've been around this game for long enough to remember that these stories used to be, oh, well, look at the marketing genius of Apple artificially restricting their supply chain so they can have lines out the door and people can be waiting for days to get this device. Are you there? Are you at that they are artificially doing it, or this is just like?
I have never been a believer that Apple artificially constrained its supply chain. I've always been a believer that Apple takes reality and then figures out how to spin it. And I think the reality was they just weren't going to get the yield here that they really wanted, and so then managed the expectations appropriately so that the iPhone 7 is looking in the most positive light as a seller. And I don't think the iPhone 7 is a disappointing seller. It definitely has demand. People are wanting to buy it, or they wouldn't even be sold out of what they are. But I also think the fact that they said we're not going to give you numbers what raised my eyebrow, actually both my eyebrows, and that this is probably why.
Yeah, and as somebody who wanted to buy a iPhone 7 Plus and has a Gazelle box waiting for me to ferry off my 6S as soon as it comes, I am disappointed that I can't buy it at an Apple store on Friday. If there are any enterprising DTNS listeners who might have a remedy for that somewhere in the Bay Area, please go ahead and get in touch with the show. But I'm with you. Apple will sell as many of these devices as they can that are within their margin. They are not going to go over margin so they can satisfy a day one demand. They don't care about that. They want to make sure that it all gets out there. But I do agree. These numbers wouldn't shock me if they were lower than what the 6S's were, just because we are in a more mature, saturated market for these kinds of phones. And even the king of the pack, the iPhone, is going to suffer that gravity.
Real quickly, W. Scottus 1 and Waffleophagus all reposting Steve I from our subreddit that the official recall in the United States for the Galaxy Note 7 has been issued. Not a shocker, but if you were waiting for that official recall notice to be negotiated, that's one of the things folks have been waiting for to clarify how this recall is going to go. That's happened now.
Apple has hired Time Warner Cable executive Pete Stern as vice president of cloud services, reporting to Eddie Q. Stern was involved in negotiations between Apple and Time Warner regarding a potential television service. When I first saw this, talking to you, Tom, the first thing that popped into my head was, oh, okay, well, I wonder how this hire either makes better or worse Apple's fairly miserable track record with web services and cloud services in general. But the more you look at it, the more this seems like it has a very specific application.
Yeah, it's confusing, I guess would be the way I put it, to note that he is involved in cloud services. This is a guy from Time Warner Cable, right? This is a guy who knows about cable services, and maybe he has some knowledge on cloud service data management as part of that ISP. It's possible, but he was involved in the negotiations over a potential television service. So it is more likely to me that they are hiring Peter Stern to help them with creating a television service. Now, all of the rumors have been that Apple had given up on that dream, that they couldn't get the deals with a cable company like Time Warner. They couldn't get the deals with the programmers individually to create their own service. And so they were just going to back off and be the platform, and single sign-in that's coming to the Apple TV would be kind of indicative of their strategy going forward. But then they go and they hire a guy away from Time Warner. which implies that there's more to it than just being a dumb app platform. And I say dumb not as in a pejorative, but as a agnostic app platform. And they might be wanting to create something a little more forward-leaning that would require negotiations with people.
Do you think that within 1 year's time, we will see a Apple TV or Apple Television, a similar package like what Sling or Sony have with PlayStation View? Do you think we will see that from Apple proper, from the mothership?
I don't. I think we would have seen it already, although maybe Apple leaking rumors that they're not pursuing that anymore was a negotiating strategy. I think we'll see something different. And I think it might have to do with the rumors that were kicking around for a while that they would provide like a monthly pass where you could pay to get what is already available in the iTunes store, television and movie-wise, on a limited basis. So you could say like, oh, well, I'll pay $50 a month and be able to pick 5 shows, so it's a lot cheaper than if I were subscribing to season passes or some way of managing those TV season passes that's a little more elegant.
Live TV, they're going to leave that to the other people who are going to negotiate those deals.
Yeah, I guess what they could do with live TV is say, okay, Twitter, which has got a really nice implementation of live streaming now on the Apple TV. They just released it this week. I tried it out this morning. It went right to Bloomberg TV, but without annoying me because it played in the back. So if it does that for the NFL and it does that for the NBA and the MLB, that's going to be compelling. Maybe Apple comes up with a way to manage those different platforms so that those live streaming apps like CBS All Access are easier to switch between. I don't know.
Well, I look forward to Apple's legendary application of web services to seeing what kind of brilliant solution they give us.
The City Bridge Consortium has terminated web browsing on the almost 400 Link NYC terminals. This is something that many people saw coming hundreds of thousands of miles away. If you don't remember, the terminals were set up back in January, placed in former phone booth locations. They continue to provide free Wi-Fi. They allow people to place calls, to charge their gadgets. However, for now, you cannot use the browser on the embedded tablet, and the reason is because of complaints of people publicly viewing inappropriate, let's be honest, mostly porn in public at these phone booths. Despite CityBridge installing OpenDNS web filtering, there's always a way around. The company said it will review content filtering and time limits on web browsing before it decides whether or not to restore that feature.
Bad idea genes, huh? Like these, yeah. Okay. Who comes out the worst on this? Are these just a civic embarrassment? Like, I mean, because
I don't even think it's a civic embarrassment. I mean, what CityBridge is trying to say is, look, we knew not everything would work. And we just put it out in public to try to learn from how it goes. We're not shocked by this either, but we wanted to see what the problems were, so maybe we can create a product that will allow some web browsing without these problems. It's an open-eyed New Yorker sort of response to this. Like, of course we knew this would happen, but you know, we didn't know exactly how, and now we do. So we're going to learn from it, and we're going to put it out there. Put it out there is probably a bad choice of words.
Because here's the thing. This is going to be you installing these and them going in on phone booths is one thing, right? But then also the fact that this is the biggest story that comes out of it, which is, you know, the two worst things you could have coming out of this, these installations as your first big story are porn and hacking, right? Like either it's unsafe to be near them, through some sort of, you know, hackers are using them as some sort of like terminal to exploit phones or
right, or if you connect to the Wi-Fi from one of these, you get your password stolen.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's not the story. We're saying
that's not the story,
that
right?
could have been a bad.
There are two bad stories that could have come out of it, and the other one is porn, and the other one is that these are the porn machines. They are not the Wi-Fi things. They are in some way tainted or unsafe. I'm curious about it. But I don't know if this is a good sign going forward. No matter how, if we can make it here, we can make it anywhere. They are not the problem.
I would like to think, and maybe I'm just a wide-eyed Illinois boy at heart still, I would like to think there's a way to limit the information that's on these things to such a point that it would be helpful for people who are just looking for a map or an address, but without allowing the wide open internet browsing that leads to these sorts of issues.
Pandora announced an anticipated new music service Thursday called Pandora Plus. For $4.99 a month, listeners get the option to skip and replay more songs and support for offline listening. The option replaces the Pandora One paid service. Free users will get the option to watch a video ad in exchange for more skips and replays. Pandora also announced an on-demand music service will arrive later this year. Yes, friends, we are giving you this story on September 15th, 2016, and not 5 years ago when it would have been a really, really rad story.
Yeah, I think Pandora is a victim of everyone expecting them to launch a streaming service to compete with Spotify because they bought Rdio, and then it leaking out that Pandora is going to have an announcement this week. And then they're like, well, the announcement is really, we're just relaunching our mid-tier. We already had a mid-tier pay service, and we're just loosening it up a little and providing more skips. But that's not the announcement everybody's waiting for. And so they kind of had to come out and go, we are going to announce an actual streaming service later this year. And that's way more interesting.
Is it? I got to feel like not only is it late for them to revamp and make their middle tier more muscular, because when I was a regular Pandora listener, I would have absolutely jumped on a $5 a month platform, because especially in a world before we realized where these kinds of subscriptions were going to settle around the $10 to $20 range for music, a $5 robust, better version of Pandora is something that I would have been very interested in. But beyond that, because I think that's 5 years too late, the idea of launching a music service, which is part of the reason why Apple's not in a huge rush to buy Tidal, is because Pandora buys Rdio, which comes with none of their deals, which comes with none of their the deals that they made for streaming. So even if they might have had better ones, or you just want to speed up the process and not negotiate, that doesn't come with the program. You are basically acqui-hiring engineers and whatever proprietary software that you liked, through Rdio. Now they're going to launch their own system in a world where the knives are out. The big boys are there in music streaming, and Spotify's got the listenership right now and the mind share, and Apple's gaining behind them because they are going to spend an unholy amount of money to make sure that every brand new album that you hear about is exclusive to their platform for a week or two. So where does Pandora fit into that? Where does the mid-tier player, where does the little kid fit in to a thermonuclear war?
Well, I got two ideas here. One is that a Pandora Plus as a radio service is in fact a lot better than it sounds, because as CP pointed out in an email earlier this week, way more people use Pandora and visit it on a regular basis than you might estimate. Way more people use it than Spotify. It's just not as profitable as Spotify, so it doesn't get the attention. So giving you more skips, giving you the ability for offline listening, giving you the ability to replay more songs makes it more useful in a way that most online radio is not. Gives it a big advantage there. Then I think what Pandora can bring to the table is a recommendation engine that, while aging, is still pretty good. It'll be interesting to see if they can take that Music Genome Project feel and add it to a streaming service and blow Spotify's Discover Weekly out of the water. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But also, Pandora's been through the wars on negotiations with rights owners. So they will be able to bring a lot of that experience to the table. They don't have time. They don't have Warner Music on board yet, so it's not a lock for them. But I guess they're hoping they'll get it before the end of the year. That's why they're saying they're confident that they'll launch it. And finally, what Pandora can do is say, "Oh, Taylor Swift isn't on our platform. No problem. Start a Pandora channel with Taylor Swift. You'll still have her. We have all of the artists available through Pandora Radio," and so they can supplement that. If they can make that stick and spin, suddenly they've got a pretty compelling offering, I feel like.
You've painted a beautiful picture, and to reference a very often quoted muse on this show, I hope it happens to them even in their wildest dreams.
The Justice Department has amended Rule 41. Remember Rule 41 that Len drew about a while back? The federal rules of criminal procedure will, under the amendments, allow the FBI to access multiple remote computers under a single warrant. The rules will allow investigation of things like botnets. Right now, they have to get a warrant for a specific computer, and if they need to go after a botnet, it's almost impossible to get a warrant for that. Even if they've got all the probable cause and all the judicial approval in the world, it's difficult to say, well, I need to go after this network of computers. The critics of this are saying, well, hold on. It's great that you need that rule, we understand, but if you're going after a botnet, you're often going after computers that aren't malicious in themselves, they're just infected. What happens if that botnet is happening on a hospital computer? What safeguards are you taking to make sure you don't bring down the networks of innocence in pursuit of these botnets, even if you do get a warrant? There's none of those safeguards built in. So there is a mounting call for Congress to weigh in on this before December 1st. The way the Justice Department went around it, they used a rather mundane procedure to say, well, we get to amend our own rules. We're just going to amend our own rules, and they will go into effect December 1st unless Congress takes some kind of action.
What I'm very curious about, and obviously I am somebody that now works as a paid political pundit for the BitTorrent News Network, and I do my own political podcast, is when you have issues like this, they don't really change. Like no congressperson or a senator or anything, state senator, governors are going to stand up and say, I am against law and order. That the FBI asking for this is something that is a bridge too far. Although we have consistently seen very popular stories of government overreach. You saw a lot of people back Apple for not turning over their phone to law enforcement. That was more of a 50-50 split than normally the idea of a paid company impeding an FBI investigation really would be. You saw the Snowden leaks, which have aged in a way that seem more favorable to Edward Snowden, considering the fact that we still talk about the Prism project in a way that's like, yeah, it's better we know about that than not know about it. So when things like these come up, what I'm always curious about is to find where are the politicians who are looking to identify new demographics in a rapidly changing world, especially on the Republican side, where the demographics that they have are shedding a little bit, that say, no, you want to know what? I'm going to be the hardliner on online privacy. I'm going to be the senator who brings that up, who filibusters about it, who is, or if there's a private organization similar to like Grover Norquist's, no tax pledge that makes incoming senators sign a thing saying that I will stand up against anything that crosses these digital lines. If the EFF or something wanted to stand up and make that a political stance. I'm curious because I think that we're getting there. It's getting to the point where now it's going to be a retail political issue to be able to sell that to voters that I'm the one who wants to take care of your online privacy, even if it means that the FBI doesn't get exactly what they want.
Well, and it's always the case, right? Like I think of in my high school when they wanted to make it an open campus. It had been an open campus, had been closed. And the argument is like, we want to make it an open campus. The students all wanted it to just be like, just make it an open campus. That's it. We don't need any rules. And the people who were willing on the parental and teacher side to say, well, yeah, okay, let's make it an open campus, but with restrictions. You can only go this far from campus. You have to obey the same rules of conduct when you're off campus. And the students are like, no, you don't put any of those extra rules in there. Just make it an open campus. The FBI is saying, don't put any extra. We'll behave. We'll be good. We won't damage anybody's networks. Don't limit us in any way because that has unforeseen consequences and could make our job harder down the road. And I think what the opponents of this are saying, and maybe what your proposed politician might stand up and say is, we're not trying to stop the FBI at all. All we're saying is, in the course of doing their work, we just need to have some rules of the road since they're operating out on networks where there are innocents in the way. Same way you would have rules for engagement that involve a civilian population. Why wouldn't you have that for Rule 41?
Well, and to be fair, I think it was W. Scott is one in the chat room who's having a hell of a day here in the chat room. Pointing out that Rand Paul has had language similar to this. I am not as familiar with every word out of Rand Paul's mouth, but that does ring familiar to me and what I do know about what he has said on stuff like this. To me, it is inevitable, and probably sooner rather than later, next 5 years or so, that we start to think of digital privacy in the same way that we think of physical privacy in terms of owning a block of land. Like at some point, the FBI's ability, the federal government's ability to interact with your online world, as specious and spread out as it can be, will be closer to how we think of eminent domain than it is to how we think of it now, which is, yeah, whatever, computers, right? Criminals use them, so do we. Let's get the criminals. I ain't got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Which even from Google, like that there were comments from Eric Schmidt years ago that kind of propagated that idea. Now these were on different issues, but I think that there is an evolving philosophy on it.
Yeah, and one of those evolutions is you should just put a sticker over your camera. That'll stop the bad guys. FBI Director James Comey told an audience at the Center for Strategic and International Studies conference that he believed covering your camera with tape was a sensible thing to do despite being mocked for the practice. He likened it to locking car doors at night. I know I just stole your top story read, Justin, but it was too good of a transition for me.
It was a great one, and you did it excellent. I'll tell you what, I'm going to tape over my Lumix camera here for the rest of this show, just so it's solidarity with Mr. Comey or Director Comey. Isn't that kind of weird? I mean, like it is. If anything, you almost wonder whether or not in an evolved future, are we always going to have open lenses on all of our devices, or if the idea of a shutter is something that becomes a part of the future.
This is one of those things that is entirely unnecessary and totally is just, it doesn't need to be debated. 99.99% of us do not need to worry about putting anything over our cameras. And even if we do, you have way more problems on your system if someone has gotten a hold of your camera than a piece of tape over the camera will solve. Now, I used to actually put, I think it was Jeremiah Grossman came into CNET and did a demonstration of how people could access your camera and turn it on without the light coming on. And I started the practice of putting a little bit of Post-it note over my camera on my laptop because why not? What does it hurt? It's perfectly true. It doesn't hurt anything to do it. Better be safe than sorry. Sure, absolutely. Comey says it's like locking your doors. People can pick locks, but you still lock your doors. I get it. But Darren Kitchen was the one that was making fun of me about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm more worried that I'm going to turn that camera on than I'm worried someone else is. And he's like, well, that's fairly reasonable. But for the most part, if you're willing to take that step, you should be taking all kinds of other steps that actually secure your computer. And then, of course, we can get into the fact that people can still hear, they can access your mic, and even if you put tape over the mic, turn up the gain, you can still hear a lot of things. Like, if you're taking your laptop into the bathroom regularly, then you probably should put something over that camera just in case you accidentally turned it on.
Well, maybe James Comey takes his laptop into the bathroom.
I think that's what we've discovered here, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's a smoking gun that Mr. Comey obviously. I mean, we all take our phones into the bathroom. Maybe we don't use them, but in our pockets or something like that. That happens all the time. So there you go. Maybe it's not such a crazy idea. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That is a look at our top stories. All right, let's take a look at this CNET report. I think it was, I want to make sure that I give correct identification to the author over there at CNET. I believe it was Mr. Roger Cheng, not our Roger Chang, but Roger Cheng, C-H-E-N-G, who did a report confirming that most of the major manufacturers have no plans to release new Android Wear devices by the end of the year. That includes LG, Huawei, and Motorola. LG released the LG Watch Urbane 2nd edition in March, but Huawei and Motorola will now be going more than a year between new watch product releases. Asus remains the only major manufacturer to announce a release for the platform in the second half of 2016. That's the ZenWatch 3 scheduled for October. And yes, we do have an Android Wear 2 introduction in May that is coming. Maybe people are waiting for that, but it is definitely a slow pace. Even Apple with the Apple Watch Series 2 took a while, and they're still not pulling the original Apple Watch off the shelves.
So, Tom, is the watch dead again?
I think the watch has always been dead. I feel like the smartwatch was never going to be big because watches themselves have a limited market. And the number of people who wear watches who also want to wear a watch for notification purposes was never very large. However, I think he points out in this article very well that the fitness application has legitimately taken off. That's why you saw Apple pivot towards, hey, GPS, water resistance. This is a fitness app. We're not going to sell the gold version anymore. So I think wearables aren't dead, but the smartwatch as a watch, I don't think it ever caught on.
But okay, so let's put a box around what we're actually talking about. We are talking about the concept that the watch could be the next great, like a famous, like the leg on the stool of the Apple stool, right? That
Phone,
this was going to be
tablet, watch.
That this could be a broad, my mom wants one, like kind of device, right? And that if the OEMs that make their money on volume, right? Like these guys do not make these products and sell it for gigantic overhead, right? That they try to make as many as possible. That I think what this points out is that this market just isn't big enough for these players to get in it. And they don't see it as a growth opportunity to just get their foot in at whatever price.
And it's a slow adoption model. I mean, you could make the argument that people didn't change their phones very often before cell phones, and even when cell phones came along, they didn't change cell phones very often, and that smartphones changed that. They changed the behavior. It's possible to change the behavior. But I would argue that watches are just not something people want to change frequently. They don't want to upgrade to a new watch all the time, and there was nothing in smartwatches that was so compelling to change that kind of behavior.
I totally agree. Also, if the same person who might be able to help me out with a new iPhone 7 that I'll be happy to pay for also has a line on the new Apple Watch, I'm totally in on that as well.
So you're absolutely going to get the new watch. You're a watch believer.
I'm going to get the new watch because I really like
What is it about watches that makes you excited?
Number one, I think the watch fits a lot better in the world of wireless headphones. Specifically, I've actually kind of come around on the idea of the AirBuds, which I cannot stop calling them AirBuds ever since I saw it. Now I just imagine the golden retriever leaping.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But the one thing I think is horrifying is the idea of volume control. Do you know how you volume control on the EarPods?
You tap them?
Siri. You initiate Siri and tell it to go higher or lower.
So you do tap them, but then that's the
tap,
only way
but then you have to speak.
Then you have to talk
There's
out loud.
no like just easy like physical way.
So much hate.
Now, that being said, I've actually come to use my watch as an adjuster, a volume adjuster and pauser for stuff more naturally now with my wired headphones. So I think a better, faster watch for that and other elements just fits into my lifestyle personally. I also think that what we saw with the first Apple Watch was not necessarily, listen, it was a disappointment in terms of expectations, but the future that it laid out is only processing power and battery away from being really, 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 really cool. Right now, we have zero breakout applications on the watch, and I don't think that will be true forever. I think that even this year or next year, we will start to see apps that will just be better versions that are more suited to live on your wrist than are in your pocket. I don't think that's changed from last year. I do think that this particular version is just so slow that you just lose faith in looking at your watch for what seems like a billion years in hell. Now, does that mean that all watches will survive? No. And I think that's what you're seeing here.
Yeah, and it was never true that all watches would survive. So, yeah, I think you're seeing that the replacement cycle is much slower. And so you're going to see fewer people selling them because the people who do buy them keep the ones they have. I also think they're not there yet. Apple was uncharacteristically early to this market. They are waiting for efficiency of the processor, which is essentially a stand-in for battery life. These things need to have better battery life. The Gear S3 is going to be a gargantuan 46 millimeters, and I think Samsung did that because they know that the majority of people buying watches are male, so they can tolerate a larger size, and that gives them more battery life. They're going to have a 4-day battery life on the Gear S3, and it allows them to put LTE into the watch. When the watch can last a week on a battery, have its own data connection, and work independently of your phone when you need it to, then I think the watch will finally be able to have its true test. But right now, it's just not a fully functional piece of technology yet.
You know, and I totally think that's the goal. That's where everybody wants these devices to be. But I guess I would disagree with you a little bit in that I think functional apps, even if they're tethered to your phone, that move fast, an Uber that I can get in 2 seconds faster than pulling my phone out and unlocking it, right? That's worth it. That to me is something that is, just that brings value to it. That brings value to me.
Yeah. Well, folks, let us know, especially if you're a watch fan, what you think. My anecdote of the week about watches is our friend who was house sitting this week, when we got back from our trip, said, "Hey, I found an LG watch on the floor when I was trying to plug something in." I was like, "Oh yeah, that was Eileen. She got it as a freebie from work. I think it was a Christmas gift from Google one year, and she never touched it. She didn't even know it was on the floor." So that's, to me, emblematic of the current state of smartwatches. All right, let's get to our message of the day. Allison Sheridan, who will actually be on the show tomorrow, we might talk a little more about her email, wrote in and said, "I'm pretty technical." Yes, I think that's understating it. "But yesterday, I was trying to refer to the battery problem on the Samsung Note 7, and it took me 3 tries until I correctly said Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Coupled with the comment from the other day where the person said diehard Note users are pre-ordering Notes, made me think maybe the Note sales won't be that bad, but it could hurt the Galaxy and Samsung brands in general. I'm thinking of a muggle thinking that Galaxy 7 explodes, and not realizing that there's a difference between the Galaxy S7 and the Samsung Note 7. And there's an interesting story from The Verge about the Port St. Lucie Police Department referring to an exploding Samsung 7 phone, which The Verge points out is a small linguistic oversight, but it bundles in the Galaxy S7 and the Galaxy S7 Edge with the Galaxy Note 7. And those are going to experience a halo effect from the burning controversy of the Note 7.
Samsung by far is the biggest brand hit in this. People think of Apple phones, Samsung phones. That's what, or Motorola, when Motorola was still a hot player, or they think of LG or something like that. The idea that this was specifically a Note 7 is lost on the vast majority of people. They think Samsung phones blow up if they worry about this story at all. How big of an effect it will have, who knows? But Samsung certainly is the name most prominently tied to these.
Yeah, that is going to be the joke for a long time. Like, oh, you have a Samsung. Whoa, let me back up. Except among Note 7 users who are going to viciously defend their Note 7 and get angry. And then there will be the users that blow up at you for making that joke. All right, that is it for Daily Tech News Show today. Thank you, Justin. Robert Young, as always, where can folks find more of what you're doing online?
Oh, you can find me everywhere. Justin R. Young, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and a lot of really, really fun stuff coming up, including my Politics podcast, which is now 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want an irreverent take on the world of politics, then please welcome into our fun little podcast. I'd like to say that politics is a circus, and I am the rodeo clown dealing drugs in the parking lot. So
we would think of you no other way, Justin. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting the show. Those of you who are willing to support the show and keep it going, we are able to provide an entirely independent perspective because our support is distributed amongst many of you. If you are willing to support the show, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support or patreon.com/DTNS. We surely do appreciate it very much. Don't forget, if you just need the headlines of the day in less than 10 minutes, you can subscribe to our Daily Tech Headlines show at dailytechheadlines.com. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. As I said, back tomorrow with Allison Sheridan. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Bajunga. Good show.
Oh,
Bless you.
man.
How's it going?
Yeah. I'm working. I'm playing injured.
Playing through the pain? Playing through the pain? Nice. Good. Well, thank you for being on the show. I know that.
Oh, man. No problem.
Do you want to stay for titles, or do you need to jam?
I think I'm going to jam.
Yeah, no worries, man. Good work.
I will talk to you guys later.
All right.
Yep.
Get
Peace.
some rest.
Do titles.
What do you think of titles, Roger?
Rule 41. It's not Rule 46.
Okay.
Samsung's Total Recall. I actually like that one, but it might be a little too movie.
We've been hitting the Samsung sauce.
It's
quite a
the most
bit.
unavailable iPhone yet. Fed up with hacks. Paid Pandora. That's Pandorable.
Oh,
Apple dreams a little dream of TV.
okay.
Can tablets carry STDs? Wait, what?
Because of the New
Oh,
York City
yeah.
tablets.
Got it. FBI sticker shock. Shudder to think about privacy.
Shutter. Oh, I get it.
Be smart, watch elsewhere. Feeling Schwifty on smartwatches.
It's
Siri
feeling
can-
Schwifty in here. Is that the proper spelling of Schwifty?
Make rumor for Apple TV. Blah, 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 blah. Watch out for wearables. The problem with wearables is you have
Yes,
to
it
look
is.
at them.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
That's one thing like someone let me not someone the store guy, I think, was it an Apple or whatever, let me try one on or something. I'm trying to remember. It's just like looking at it is the hurdle. If I'm going to look at something, I want to look at something that's data rich, or at least is a little more easier to use. And I was thinking, what if you could move beyond just tactile feedback where you just feel it, or haptic feedback, but you could use things like thermal indicators. Like if your watch is cold, suddenly like it's like a different sort of alarm.
Well, it does the haptic thing, yeah. So,
But I mean, after a while, buzzes all seem the same to me.
Hmm.
Like if it's
But
burning
wouldn't that
hot,
be true of temperature? You'd be like, forget what cold is. I mean, you're limited. I don't know.
I mean,
I like
cold
that.
and hot.
Yeah.
Or if it could play a tune that you could actually feel, like you have a ringtone, if you could feel it in your forearm.
Oh, it does that, but only on your wrist. It can't feel it on your forearm.
But I mean, like if how like Jawbones, but certain Bluetooth earpieces work by sending the sound through your jawbone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could jiggle your fat. Oh no, my spare tire's jiggling. That means I'm late.
But
for my
all of
appointment.
these, I get where you're going, which is I don't want to have to look down
Yes.
to see what the notification. Yeah.
Jiggle your stomach. That means it's lunchtime.
All right.
Jiggle your butt. It's time to go for.
Are we
a
going to
run.
get Schwifty with smartphones? Is that what we're going to do?
Yes. Sorry. Feeling Schwifty on smartphones.
There should be a C in Schwifty. I'm told.
Well, I don't want it in the pocket. I mean, I understand it's noticeable, but it's all on your wrist. You can't. You gotta.
Literally.
You gotta vibrate and jiggle parts of your body. I don't know. They really just need to embed it. I mean, is that the whole thing about?
Well, that's what I was thinking Magic Leap might be, but I don't think it will be now.
Subcutaneous technology.
Just something that what I'm imagining someday is you have something that's very unobtrusive sitting.
You have to move slightly closer to your mic.
So you just say you can't hear me.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Something unobtrusive that's just kind of sitting down there at the corner, and then just projects into your retina.
Yeah, that could totally turn into like a Timothy Leary drug experience. And then you mix that with Pokemon Go, and you're trying to capture the Safeway bagger.
Well, just in a way, so that like the ultimate augmented reality, right? It shows up in your field of vision. You don't have to look down at anything. It's designed right so that it's unobtrusive, but you see it.
The problem is you still need to put your attention onto it.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole. I mean, then you don't. What you're saying at that point is, I don't want to be notified. Like, that's a whole different conversation. Even your hot and cold requires your attention. You have to pay attention to it.
You know, I think for me the simplicity test is it needs to be as simple as your alarm going off and you know it's time to get up from bed. I know it's
some of that's just building in the habit, though, isn't it? Like learning the system.
Maybe we just need another brain. An augmented brain system that does all that stuff for you, or at least it basically runs your body. You ever driven anywhere and you just realize like I don't remember driving here. Like I'm here, I'm in the car, but I didn't really think about driving.
Like I don't remember taking the turns to get here. Yeah. Or the alternate to that is when you start driving the wrong place out of habit. Like you just start driving to work when you're like, wait a minute, I'm not going to work. It's Saturday. That doesn't happen to me anymore because going to work is downstairs. But every once in a while, we'll get in the car and Eileen will just start driving to Google, driving to YouTube. I'm like, hey, where are you going? But you don't want the thing that projects it into your field of view?
I don't know. I'm very sensitive things doing anything with my eyes unless it makes my vision better.
Well, they could do that too.
Well,
why not?
I've always wondered that with all this technology. Like you just can't grow me a new eyeball that isn't like oblong. It's just perfectly round where it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
And they get me lenses that are like diamond coated. So even if someone pokes
there's a difference between coating something with diamond and growing an organ.
Why not both?
Well, those are different disciplines. You need a cross-disciplinary lens crafter organ grower.
Butler, find me a cross.
I wonder when we'll be able to grow eyeballs for replacement. So no more LASIK. You just swap them out.
Or even better, like, you know what? I would even deal with 1080p vision if it meant that I didn't have to wear glasses and everything. Like, that's just like the sensor array that they can put back
Yeah,
there.
Suddenly your 1080p television is retina.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Everything just looks super sharp on television. Not in the rest of the world, but oh well.
One of these days we'll figure it all out, I hope. Like kidneys. Well, hopefully before I go, because I would like to have...
Yeah, Tinvik's saying they'll have to do less complex organs first, like kidneys.
Kidneys. Actually, I figured they'd always do liver, because liver is one of the
liver
few
might be a good one.
Can grow back.
But yeah, they'll do the once they start doing those, then we'll know we could start hoping for eyes, but eyes are pretty complex.
What if they have to create like a simulacrum or what do they call it?
Simulacrum?
Yeah, like a clone, but not a full living
golem?
clone. But basically, you would have all the organs and appendages you would need spares of. It's like, oh, we need a new eyeball. They go to it and they just pluck it out and stick it in you.
Well, yeah, that's the plot of how many stories and movies.
Well, it's the one with...
it's not ethical. Those are real people, those clones. You can't
No,
just
you
use
leave-
them as body farms.
Take out the brain, and then they don't feel.
That's unethical too.
Listen, ethics is like morality is subject to dozens, if not
If ethics gets in the
thousands.
way of Roger being able to harvest a clone for organs, then it's not ethics to him.
It's merely a mere technicality.
It's just simply an impediment to be overcome.
Really, isn't that how we always explain everything? It's like, but for the greater good. The Island with the, but wasn't The Island a remake of another movie from the 70s?
Was it? That sounds familiar. I liked The Island. That was good. That was a good movie. It wasn't the best movie, but it was pretty good. I think because everybody said it was awful, I enjoyed it more. One of those expectation setting things.
I remember seeing a similar movie was made in the late 70s, early 80s that had a very similar
It's certainly
plot.
not a brand new concept. Like that concept has been kicking around for a while. Venture Brothers, that's true.
Logan's Run. And the Logan's Run movie, I have never seen the TV series. I'm a little disappointed. I've only seen the Logan's Run movie. What a way to go. 30. Get zapped.
Oh, man. Okay, I have published the show. Thank you all for watching. Thanks again, Justin Robert Young. And we are going to be back tomorrow with Allison Sheridan and Len Peralta. Talk to you then.